Have you tried GitHub's new MCP server? MCP is an open protocol that enables AI models to connect to tools and data in the GitHub ecosystem. This is GitHub's official open source MCP server. It's like giving your AI assistant superpowers all from inside VS Code. Let's look at what you can do with GitHub's MCP. You can automate GitHub workflows and processes like triggering actions and managing issues right from chat. You can extract and analyze GitHub repository data using tools like code scanning and repo metadata to generate insights instantly. You can also build your own AI-powered tools to interact with GitHub, creating custom extensions to connect with GitHub's API and integrate them right into your developer workflows. Setting it up is incredibly simple. Let me walk you through it. This is going to be for VS Code. First, make sure you have the latest version of VS Code installed. Then head to gh.io/MCP. That repo contains all the code and documentation for the MCP server. Don't forget to leave a star. Then you can scroll down to the README and you can see this one-click option here to install for VS Code or VS Code Insiders. We'll select VS Code. That is going to automatically open our editor. Here we can see the preset configuration and make changes to update with my own token. And I need to make sure that we have agent mode enabled on chat. Once that's done, you can interact directly in the GitHub Copilot box by selecting agent mode. This is going to allow Copilot to access and use GitHub's MCP server tools. Now you're ready to interact through natural language. You can ask things like get me, which is going to show you a brief overview of the authenticated user. You can even give tasks like I just did. I want to create a new repo called MCP tips and even create the content that's going to go inside that README. I quickly specify what I want. And once that's done, the MCP server goes to work for me. With GitHub's MCP server, you are enabling a new class of AI-powered tooling. Whether for automating workflows or using insights from repos, it's all open source, developer first, and ready to be extended. It works seamlessly with VS Code agent mode. Plus, you can use it with any tool that supports the Model Context Protocol. Try it out, start the repo, and let us know what you're building with GitHub's MCP server.
Microsoft Build is coming to Seattle May 19th through the 22nd, and I will be there, the GitHub team will be there, and we're bringing the goods. We're gonna feature the Copilot prize wheel, we have surprise product demos, and we'll be bringing this ultimate vibe coding keyword. Oh, that's what that is. So that is the button for the prize wheel. Okay. This conference is gonna shape up to be a perfect mix of learning and fun with plenty of opportunities for you to talk to GitHubbers as well as watch live demos and explore the latest in developer tools and technologies. I hope to see you there. Mark your calendars. This is one dev conference you don't wanna miss.
Welcome to Open Source Friday, where we highlight amazing projects and the incredible developers behind them. I'm Andrea Griffiths, a la Columbia Dev. I am so excited today because I have a fantastic developer with us today, Mr. Dhravya Shah, the creator of Supermemory. Supermemory is an open source project that's gaining serious traction. It's got over 9,000 stars. And after this stream, it better go over 10,000. Dhravya, welcome to the stream. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me, Andrea.
I am so excited to talk to you. Before we get into it, those of you who may be joining us for the first time and you have no idea what this is Open Source Friday. This is our weekly deep dive into projects that are making wave in the community. And one of those projects is Supermemory. And that's what we're going to explore today. So Supermemory is billing itself as an AI second brain for all your stuff. And before we jump into this project, once again, Dhravya, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you joining us from? Who is Dhravya Shah?
Yes, so hi guys, I am a 19-year-old product maker. I currently study in ASU in Tempe, Arizona. I also work at Cloudflare. I used to be in their Workers AI department. Now I work as a developer relations. I have built a lot of open source projects, including Apple MCP, Supermemory, Markdowner, totaling over like 30,000 stars in total. And yeah, that's it about me.
That is impressive. Very impressive. Apple MCP. We got to talk about that one too briefly before you go today. But you're doing a lot. You're super busy at 19, which is incredible. And now Supermemory is gaining a ton of momentum. I saw your star chart and it's rocket ship.
Yeah.
That's no small feat, especially when there's so much noise out there. So let's dive exactly into what is Supermemory. What problem were you particularly trying to solve when you sat down to code this out?
Yep. So when AI kind of started to rise, I got into a lot of applied AI startups. So I was actually working at one of these startups called Mem0. And back then I was in Mumbai, India, and Mem0 was previously called Embedchain, which is also an open source startup. But essentially they try to solve like the memory aspect of. I realized that okay, this is very interesting. So if you provide the right context to AI at the right time, it performs much better. But then how do you get the right context? To build a second brain, you first have to have connectors that go into each of your apps and then put them in like a memory layer, and then you should be able to do things with that. So that was the idea. Like second brain has been a concept that is, there's so many apps. Even Notion started off as like a second brain thing, but all of them were mainly manual. I tried to make it more AI centric and automated.
That's amazing. There was definitely a gap there, right? Bridging all that information and then
Yep.
how to quickly make it accessible when
Yep.
we need it. This reminds me of another project that have you heard of Fabric? It's
That's right.
it reminds me of that. It's that idea of augmenting your capabilities, but then there is a ton of stuff out there for that, but none of it tells me how to do it easily.
Yep.
And most of it wants me to pay for it.
Yeah.
Dhravya, can you, I don't know, maybe take us for a spin? Can we take a look at the project itself?
Yep. So I will share my screen now.
Awesome. Let's do it. This resonates with me because I for sure have folders of bookmarks upon folders of bookmarks upon folders of bookmarks that I never revisit. I just declare bankruptcy and close them out and forget and then lose the stuff that I thought I was going to read. So what are we
Yep.
looking at right now?
Exactly. So this is like the open source repository. I just wanted to add that the reason that one of the other reasons that I made Supermemory was because I really wanted to own my data. There was this one time when Pinterest deleted everything I had. So you can self-host this entire thing. There's a very nicely written self-hosting guide and also support over pull requests and issues as well. But anyway, so here, this is my second brain. That is my Supermemory dashboard right now. So I can add content. I can import from some existing tools like Notion, Obsidian, Chrome bookmarks, or I can upload a CSV because browsers export a CSV of URLs and a lot of other apps do. I can also add it as an iOS shortcut so that it appears in the share sheet, or just manual upload or writing the note. That is also possible. Anyways, you can also create like folders, and I'll tell you more about that. But it's basically a chat GPT for your bookmarks where you see everything that you have saved across platforms. So I have a shit ton of Twitter bookmarks because I am chronically online on Twitter. That's just like images loading. So yeah. On top, this is the interesting part. This is basically a recap of some things that you might have forgotten. So it knows what I might be interested in as of right now based on my last 10 memories saved and my location and some other things. There's that. And then I can also ask it questions. So let's say this is a interesting question. I ask it, and then in just about 1 or 2 seconds.
Are you running locally right now? Is this a
No,
local?
this is not local.
Okay.
Yeah, this is on supermemory.ai.
Okay.
So it gives you the answer and the relevant links as well. So that's like the exact link that was there in this tweet. So I can then go to the tweet, I can do everything about it. And yeah, that's it. This is the simple Supermemory. But after I released this, and because it's open source, I saw a lot of developers coming to me and asking me, hey, like, how did you build this and how did you scale this? Because right now it actually has millions of vectors, and to run a vector database at that scale is not only expensive, but also hard and slow. So as you saw, the search query was pretty slow because vector databases get slow when they grow. So then I built my own optimizations on top of existing vector database. And now I'm pivoting Supermemory to developer tool, which I'll also share my screen real quick. Yeah, like I'm turning it into a developer tool where any developer can use the Supermemory API to build memory into their existing AI applications. So you can just add content. It can be in any format. It can be a website, PDF, anything. And then you can connect apps just like you did through the main app, and then you can also search. So this is what has been growing a lot lately. And yeah, developers have been loving this a lot.
That's very cool. So I'm able to use it in the context of my own application then, or whatever it is that I want to add my memory to. Wow. I love to understand how you're doing this behind the scenes. Like that sounds extremely complex. So what are some of the use cases that you've seen where developers are including this in their apps? Like for what type of applications?
So recently, I have seen a lot of content media agencies use Supermemory to maintain the tone and the style of the blogs that they generate for programmatic SEO. I've also seen a lot of searching through medical records on open medical databases to get like exact results for medical chatbots, for example, or financial or legal. This is stuff that I've already seen people building. But other than that, there's also hobby projects. There's a very amazing note-taking app that a friend is building, which is like super powered by AI because like Supermemory gives you much more context than Notion AI can ever do. And then you can also connect to Google and stuff like that. There's also a Raycast extension, which means like everything I see on the screen goes into Supermemory and then it's saved. So that's all the cool things that have been built already.
Wow. And so are all these different applications, those are not extensions that people are creating, or are they extensions that people
Some
are
of them
creating
are
for?
extensions, which means they actually go into your Supermemory user account, which is the Raycast extension. But some of them are true developer products that are completely different. It's like them using Postgres, or it's them using AWS for building something that they wanted to build.
All right. That is really interesting. For folks who are wondering how you're doing this, and of course, Fox is open source. You can go to the repos and take a look at it. But can you talk us a little bit through the architecture of the site and the tech stack? You had an amazing image in your repo, actually. I love it when repos do this. If you can share your screen, and you know what I'm talking about. I love it when projects do this because it just helps set such contextual. Yeah, that one. If you can talk us a little bit through the tech stack that you use, and just a little bit about how the build works, that'd be awesome.
Yep. So entirety of Supermemory is built on the Cloudflare SaaS stack, which is another project of mine, which kind of bootstraps the project for Cloudflare. It sets up like the front end, back end, everything. This is Cloudflare workers and pages. I use Hono for the back end routes. I use Drizzle and AI SDK, which is like all the normal stuff. But for the background jobs, like continuously sloping content from your Notion to keep that updated in your memory, I use a cron job that goes off every 4 hours. And then I actually built my own vector database on top of durable objects. So that's one thing, the Postgres part. So this is the unscalable part. This is why the current app was slow. And then Markdowner is another project of mine, which is an alternative to Firecrawl or Gina AI reader. And it can go to a website and then it can get the extract content out of it in form of Markdown. It's also open source. It has 1,000 stars right now. And to add memory, etc., I use workflows, and then there's an S3 compatible object store for multimodal media.
That is so cool. Hey, I haven't checked out Markdowner, but that sounds really interesting. So any website, it'll convert it to LM ready Markdown data.
Yes.
That's very cool. That's very cool because there's a lot of places where I like to extract certain information, but in a way that can be optimized. And sounds like that's just a tool that would do that. That's really cool.
Yep, here it is, Markdowner.
All right, so let's go and start Markdowner as well. Of course, start Supermemory. I'd love to ask you, especially because you just brought up this other project of yours. What was your thought process behind the decision of, because everything is open source. I just love to understand, where have you always thought about that? I know you're a student at the moment. Is this like, where does this sort of way of working and building come from? How did you make that decision?
Yep. So my initial motivation for building open source was open source is the reason that I got to learn a lot of software in my initial days. So that was like my first instinct. It was a hackathon project when it started. So hackathon projects are usually, they start out open source anyways, but then I kept it like that because I realized that there is no moat anymore. In software, anyone can build anything at this point, and the only real moat that you can get is speed and velocity, and second is like how much you have distribution. So if you have speed and distribution, you can also show that to the world if you just make it all open source. So especially because I'm building multiple developer products, like Supermemory is now turning into a developer product, and Markdowner is already one. All of these are used by developers, and developers trust things that other developers use. So that's the reason.
Very true. That is a very thoughtful approach. Speaking of open source, we still got to do the plug. I don't know if you have sponsors set up on your repos. I see that you've been able to get support from Cloudflare and Vercel, and CodeRabbit have sponsored you. But if folks want to contribute to this, sponsors is set up. So you can do it right there on GitHub. All you got to do is click on the sponsor button and go ahead and sponsor so that you can keep churning up these amazing projects. This is so cool. I wanted to ask you about your API. So developers can build on top of Supermemory, and you're already seeing that with the extensions. Super excited about what other folks out there are building. And if you're watching this and you have built something using Supermemory, please put it in the chat so that we can take a look at it. The idea is that Supermemory is going to handle the parts like that collection, the processing, the retrieving of the data, so that then you can focus on whatever it is that you want your application to be.
Yep.
Having that experience on top of the foundation. I love that. I think that's like a super powerful way to enable people to build. So please, if you build something, share it in the chat. I'll send you some stickers. I think it's really cool to see who's been building. What kind of contributions are you looking for these projects, specifically for Supermemory, since that's the one that we're focused on?
So the main type of contribution that really helps in Supermemory is integrations, because people, like, all the issues right now are about adding integrations to people's existing workflows and apps. Like, for example, people want an Evernote one, OneDrive, etc. And I can only build so many integrations myself, even though there's like a very proper framework made out. If you have OAuth 2 integration, like, you just put in the details of OAuth 2 and it's done. It should be that simple. But there's a lot of integrations like CSV and Obsidian import that you have to do manually. So I have to code those out because people actually upload Obsidian files. There's no way to actually go in and slurp like all your stuff from your computer. So those integrations are super hard to make, and I'm looking for help with that.
Okay, definitely. Hey, if you have a use case, somebody build me one for Bear too. Obsidian and Bear. You'll forever be my friend. I love it. So looking at where you are right now and state of features that you have, integrations being a big thing, right? What else is in your roadmap? You're turning to full-on developer tool. So what else do you think is going to be coming up that you're comfortable sharing?
Yep. So I realized that, all right, the web app it doesn't have high retention. And the reason is that it is a web app. Web apps, especially in productivity, have to have solving an exact need, or it should be something that people come as a tool. Supermemory doesn't fit any of one of those descriptions well enough. So on the consumer side, the consumer app will always be there for the existing users, but I'm also going to launch a mobile app, which is where I think most of the second brain market is really, because then you read something on the mobile, you want to read it later, you put it on Supermemory. So that's one thing that's definitely coming up. From the developer side, I'm also building a Supermemory MCP, which means you can take your own memory and your second brain into any chatbot that you go to and just add it as an MCP. So the chatbot knows exactly what you are. You can use any chatbot for the retrieval. OpenAI is adding MCP soon. Claude already has it. So I'm really excited about that one.
You need to play with the GitHub MCP, please, so that I can...
Actually, I have both GitHub MCP and Apple MCP installed on my Claude. That's the only two servers that I very actively use.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Apple MCP was one of yours as well, or is one...
Yes, that's also mine. Yeah.
That's also one of yours. Please tell us a little bit about this. Is this an open source project as well?
Yes. So this one is also open source. And wow, funnily enough, it has exactly the same number of stars as Markdowner. This gives you like a features list. The idea is that it is Siri built into every single LLM. So I'll just show you a demo right after this, but it can send messages, it can read notes, it can write emails, remind you stuff, it can open and do stuff in maps, And soon it will
Wow.
also be able to do like Apple Photos and Apple Music as well. The demo is like, there's one here because I don't want to show one on my computer right now. Is it? Hopefully it is. Let's not. We'll cut that part out because
That's
the
okay.
issue is there is one here. So here's the demo where I just install it,
that will install, and
and
if you
then
go
I copy this from the GitHub to my Cloud desktop config, and then I see all the tools available. This is when I only had 3 tools, now there's 7. And then I can read my notes from a certain platform and then send people messages and then write it as a note somewhere else, which is pretty cool. So it's
That's pretty
going
cool.
searching. Now it's looking up the contact. Once, like, I cut this off here, but once the contact is there, it will go ahead and then it will actually send the message as well. So it can do that with maps. That was one of the videos that I shared very recently, where it went ahead and planned my entire trip and put it in my Apple Notes. So yeah, it's like a computer use agent, you could say.
That is really cool. That is really cool. I feel like all of these tools that you created are all interconnected in a way. Like they're all aspiring to do one thing, making our lives easier. That's for sure. Now you just share the Apple MCP and even thinking about it, Supermemory before, because security is like a massive concern for people now, and handling sensitive information. Like I see when you were like, I don't want to show it off my computer. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't either, because who knows what is going to come up.
Yep.
How does, for example, Supermemory handle privacy concerns? Like, how is it handling those sensitive information there?
Yep. So the way it works is I actually do not store any raw data myself. Everything is in the form of embeddings, and I even quantize those embeddings. To convert a quantized embedding into text again is super duper hard. Did I get cut off there?
No.
Okay. Because
what happened? Did
to
something
convert
look weird?
quantized embeddings.
Start from
So turning quantized embeddings back into text is super duper hard. An attacker just cannot do that even if they have access to my database. But even getting access to the database is super hard because there is no database variables. There is no database connection strings. It is all inside using bindings inside my Cloudflare account. And to get Cloudflare account, you have to have a physical key, which is literally sitting next to me. So it's never happening.
That's awesome to know and very important, because I know we all want to know what's happening with our data once it's processed, and you're not sharing any data. You don't have it like with any third parties. That's pretty cool. Since you've been building Supermemory, what's been one of your biggest technical challenges?
As I said before, the biggest technical challenge, one of the biggest was figuring out connections and then how to sync connections in the background. Because you cannot really edit vectors as they exist today. So you have to re-embed them, which is really costly. Because I'm just a college student, I had to run all of this in $5 a month. So that's what I did for the first 8 months of running this.
Wow.
Entirety of Supermemory was running on less than $5 a month. Then I switched to my own Postgres embeddings database. And even in that one, I figured when I actually scale in number of users, Postgres scales and it is cheap, but it is really slow. Then I added a lot of optimizations, like I use different approximate nearest neighbor source techniques. There's DiskKNN, there's inverted file indexes, which reduce the recall, which means your answers might not be qualitatively that good, but it will be a little bit faster. And this is still not the best of all worlds, right? I want fast search that is also very high recall, which means the quality of the answers is good. And I also want it to be cheap for me to run. So that's when I dive deep into vectors and databases and embedding models and all of that. And I have actually started re-engineering everything from the ground up to make the API scalable. Just yesterday, I did a load test with 500,000 documents ingested. And I can do that now very confidently. And search only takes 300 milliseconds, which is awesome. This also scales linearly. So that means if I add 5 million more documents, it will only go up to 450 or 500 milliseconds, which is fine. So yeah.
That is super impressive. Okay. So there's a lot of opportunity for folks to contribute. That might be one of the things, right? If this is your jam, if you're all about custom embedding strategies and you're like, hey, let's go work on an interesting problem. I think it can be super complicated though, because you're doing different types of content. It's not just one thing.
Yes, that's right.
That's fascinating.
Because then one of the other very big challenges is how do you extract data from raw content? Even for Markdowner, right? If I have a website URL, there's a lot of services like Firecrawl that go through the bot protections as well, but they're really expensive. So I built Markdowner for a cheaper alternative. For me, it's free to run. But then how do I actually go through the bot protection? Because what if someone puts like a Reddit link or a LinkedIn or a Crunchbase link that these platforms don't allow to be scraped? That's one thing. And in PDFs, let's say there's a table, there's a graph. How do you ingest those? So Markdowner now handles all of that, which is very cool. But that was like insanely hard to figure out.
Amazing. Amazing. So it sounds like there's still a lot to do there. For contributions, take a look at the issues now and see if one of those extensions is something that you're into. If you want to make my day, my life, go build that Obsidian and Bear one. And then, of course, folks, go ahead and sponsor Dhravya so that he can keep doing this amazing work. How can folks get a hold of you? Where do you live nowadays? Online? I think you're an ex-person, right? And I would share your handle as well. It's your name. Simple. Dhravya Shah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's the easiest one.
I have to ask a question. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Go on.
Also, the best place to find all my links is on dravya.dev.
Okay, perfect. And then I know that there is a question, and folks, we're doing this as a pre-recorded stream because we're going to be at Build during this time. And I wanted to make sure that we got some of this great content out to you with no delays. But you can still ask your questions on the chat. Both myself and Dhravya are in the chat right now. In the future, Dhravya. By this time, my Build talk is done and I have a better plan for me. But so if you have a question that we haven't covered, please don't hesitate to drop it in the chat. And even if it's after the stream, I'll take a look and make sure to link up with Dhravya and send it to them. And then I feel like if I was watching this right now, I will have a question because like you have done such incredible things and you're a student and you're like, the hustle is real, right? If there's somebody that's watching you right now and wants some advice about how to ship as fast and as great as you have, I don't know. What advice do you have if you were going to start over building all these projects? Is there something you wish you known?
Yes, so I would say the best part you could do right now is experiment and get out of your comfort zone. Because when things like MCP come out, you have to actually dive in deep and think, what are the coolest things that will be made with this thing in the next like few months? And you have to go build those things. So that's Supermemory MCP and Apple MCP. When memory became popular, that's what I thought. And then I built Supermemory. So there's a lot of experiments. Share your work to the public as soon as possible, because that is the only motivator for building it better, getting a feedback loop going. Once you have all that, it's actually not that hard to manage between your like job, studies, and your hobby projects because you're excited about all of them, right? Yeah, that's it. And leverage AI as much as possible. Use GitHub Copilot, Cursor, Claude, Windsurf. In fact, I'm such a huge fan that they send me headphones. So,
No way.
yeah, so I just use all these AI tools way too much to enable me to ship faster and experiment more.
Listen, I think you cracked it. That's probably taking people the longest. We've been in a collective state of denial, but guess what? Folks are going to be shipping faster and better than ever by using these tools to augment their abilities. And like Dhravya, you're an example of that. Like amazing, amazing. All right, friends. So go try Supermemory right now. Go to Supermemory AI/Supermemory and start that repo. And then go to Dhravya.dev. And I'm going to have all these links on the notes so you can check out all of Dhravya's projects and you can start every single one of them, please. Sponsor the ones that you're interested in. Take a look at those issues for some that might be technical challenges that you're into. And yeah, I can't wait to talk to you. You have to come back to Open Source Friday. This is your cue. Get in there and start building, experimenting, and augment yourself. All great advice. Thank you so much, Dhravya, for coming by today.
Yep. Thank you so much for inviting me.